do I even begin to start talking about Azumanga Daioh? It's like one of the cornerstones of my comedy anime knowledge. I first watched it after maybe a year of being interested in anime way back in the day, thanks in no small part to a little video called AMV Hell 3, the motion picture.
I was writing paper on the PC, and it was like bleep, 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 bleep.
It is a show that is so random and yet oddly grounded in what I would later see as the common tropes of the high school genre. Now, I say high school genre, but I don't mean it in the same way as when I would say like an action genre or sci-fi or romance. But if you've watched as much anime as I have, you may have noticed that setting an anime at a high school is not necessarily a new thing. It's like at least half of all the interesting things that happen in Japan only happen to high school students, or at least happen on their school grounds. But for me, this was the first, and since then, the similarities between it and anything else comedy or slice of life related have been prominently noticeable. So, ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Akata, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today, oh my god, it's Azumanga Daioh. Let's jam. The story for this series is kind of interesting in that there isn't one. Generally speaking, it's about a group of high school girls and their daily life from the very first day of high school up until they graduate 3 years later. However, the passage of time is the only thing that really shows this, as on an individual episode level, none of that is really prevalent. The series is more like a massive pile of short stories or skits woven together to show us these characters' lives. This is mostly because of the manga. Yes, I've read the manga. I own the whole thing, actually. It's one of my favorite tomes of fiction that I actually own. I know, it's crazy, 2 reviews in a row where I've actually read the source material. This isn't a normal thing. So don't worry, this is basically it. I don't read a lot of manga. Anyway, let's explain a bit of the story format, shall we? The manga style used for Azumanga is known as yonkoma, or 4-koma. It's a style with 4 panels ordered from top to bottom that tell a short story or do a gag by the end. As such, most of these gag stories are adapted wholesale into this show. Now, normally this would make for a rather disjointed series, as none of the individual strips would be able to fit together in any sort of narrative. However, in this case, all the stories are generally done in groups that just happen to follow the same theme. So, for example, you might have several strips about the sports festival where each strip follows what just one character is doing, and then all the show has to do is animate them all happening at the same time, which is more or less exactly what they did. There is some random one-off scenes here and there as well, but they're usually tacked on to one end of a group or another that just happen to make sense narratively. The style exists to tell short stories concisely, with each panel being set up in a specific way. Panel 1 sets the scene. Panel 2 develops the story laid out in Panel 1. Panel 3 is the climax, usually an unforeseen development, and the 4th panel is the conclusion where we get to see the aftermath. The style is very popular for gag manga because the style in and of itself is like a joke. You got the intro, the build-up, the punchline, and then the part where nobody laughs because your jokes aren't funny. Okay, now that we've got the boring bits out of the way, let's talk about our characters. Like most series, specifically in the slice of life genre, each of the major characters are given at least one major trait or quirk that becomes like the core basis of their character. But in Azumanga's case, it's not as simple as just assigning one trait to each character, a trait that makes it easy to describe that character in at least just one sentence. Well, mostly. Tomo, for example, is hyper, like extremely so. Her personality is such that she says and does almost everything that immediately comes to her mind, usually in the quickest and most intense way possible. Her best friend Yomi is a girl who exemplifies someone who is obsessed with her weight, with many a story focusing on her dieting or her love for sweets. But that's not her defining feature, as she's sort of Tomo's anchor, attempting and sometimes failing to ground her back to reality. She also would be the stereotypical smart one of the bunch if it were not for Chiyo-chan. Chiyo is the child prodigy. Even though she's only elementary school age, her teachers decided that she is skilled enough to learn on a high school level, hence skipping multiple grades, including all of middle school. Despite this, she's not self-centered or gloaty about it, and instead becomes like the cute mascot for the show, but one who can both cheer on her friends and support them in however she can in spite of her age. Now moving on, Miss Sakaki originally starts off as this tall, reserved, quote-unquote cool character before revealing that she's just rather shy. She's fond of cute things and dislikes people's perception of her based on her looks and athletic ability. Her goal in the series is to pet a cat, though they have this habit of trying to bite her hand off, much to her dismay. Lastly, in the main group, there is Osaka, whose real name is only ever mentioned once, as Tomo quickly nicknames her Osaka due to her place of birth. Her nickname also is not actually representative of her actual personality, since besides her accent, she is rather quiet, airheaded, and maybe a little psychotic, but in an innocent sort of way. The series also includes a variety of secondary characters, including Kagura, the athletically minded rival to Sakaki who joins the class in second year, and Kaorin, who is most well known for her highly overblown infatuation for Sakaki. Then there are the teachers. First there's Yukari, the homeroom English teacher who has very unconventional methods of teaching. She's easily angered, and in many cases is just dysfunctional. Secondly, there is Niyama, the PE teacher and Yukari's high school friend, also rival. She is generally more focused and nicer to her students than her counterpart, which causes some wonderful friction between the two. And lastly of the teachers, there is Kimura, who cannot be accurately described with words.
Ding, 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 ding!
What the heck was that?
One of the beauties of this show is how all the characters act and react with each other over the course of several years. The way that they interact with one another is just completely natural, despite their ranging personality differences. And it's just pure fun. The animation style is detailed yet simple. As far as the characters go, each is rendered in their own unique style, swapping between the different school uniforms and casual clothes when need be. The lack of detail comes from more or less everything else, from the backgrounds to the special effects to the girls' fellow classmates, because it seriously doesn't get much more basic than just white outlines. Though in most cases it's just a matter of the animators choosing their battles, as sometimes the amount of things going on at once spikes up drastically. The soundtrack is wonderful, utilizing a variety of unique and rare instrumentations to give this feeling of lightheartedness. Recorders, tubas, accordions, all these kinds of really weird stuff that is just pleasant to listen to. Plus, just the recorder itself is a wonderfully childlike instrument that I wish was used in more places. The dub is, well, spot on. The majority of the cast is able to play their character's personality to the letter. Quite frankly, the only voice I had any semblance of a problem with was Jessica Boone's portrayal of Chio-chan, mainly because of the pitch she used, but I will be honest, after a few episodes, you start to just not mind that anymore. Now, with the opening for the series, the animation more or less shows you everything you need to know. It's actually rather scary how accurate it is in representing this show. However, the lyrics to the song itself make no sense whatsoever. Like, I'm not even saying that it just doesn't fit compared to the show, I am saying that the song makes absolutely no sense as written. It's almost as bad as Excel Saga. And I know that in that case, the song was written by a guy who only had like half an hour to come up with lyrics, so at least that has some semblance of an excuse. Now, the ending is a little bit more melancholic, though at times can be equally trippy. At least in that case, the lyrics make sense. Azumanga Daioh is what a lot of comedy slice-of-life shows wish they could be. It's a master of grabbing your attention and making sure you're paying attention to just this little thing, and then lets you go, only to pull you right back a second later. And surprisingly, the story is not something that gets boring either, even when the same situations constantly overlap. The girls are living the 3 years of their high school lives throughout the entirety of this show. So yearly events like the Cultural Fest, the Sports Fest, and Summer Vacation happen multiple times, but even when they are reused, you don't really get bored of them. The story takes what happened the previous time and then just builds on it. Now, if the show did go beyond their high school years, then I could see it getting a little old, but what we got was just the right amount. I first watched the series when I was in high school, and I enjoyed it for being the high school experience that I never got. Perhaps if you're in high school now, you might be thinking the same, or if you're in high school, you might be luckier than I was and think that this is entirely boring. Why watch a show about what you already do. Like, why watch something that's so similar to your existing life? Now, I don't think that a lot of people have a similar life to this, but I could see it happening. Eventually, though, I think most people after high school can watch this show and appreciate the simplicity of it. It's an innocent look at a time where you don't have to worry about adult-related things. Bills, loans, debt. I explained that the characters in the show are just pure fun, and because of that, it's the feeling I get when I watch the show. It's just pure fun. Full stop. So with all that in mind, I present Azumanga Daioh with a well-deserved recommendation of Certified Frosty, a rating for only the best of the best, or those shows too important to ignore. If you haven't had the chance to watch this show yet, I highly recommend that you find a copy somewhere, buy it, and watch it at your leisure, because it is most certainly worth watching, and is the kind of show that I give friends odd looks when I find out that they haven't seen it yet, which is then immediately followed by excitement as I get to show it to them and watch their reactions. Ah, so fun. Unfortunately, as high of a recommendation as that is, actually watching the show legally is extremely difficult. Azumanga was one of the titles originally owned by ADV when they closed their doors back in 2009, and for some reason that I cannot fathom, no existing anime licensor in North America has bothered to pick up the rights and resell it. As such, a DVD copy is hard to come by. Like mine, I was lucky enough to pick up at Anime North's equivalent to a garage sale last spring, but it's been on my buy on site list for a number of years now. Best I can suggest at this point is to just wait and hope it gets relicensed, or just go up and pick out the manga, especially the omnibus version, because it is still in print. Not this exact version, because I think this version's quite a few years old, but there are still copies of the omnibus available, and my god is this thing huge. Still, the manga itself is enough to show you what this world and these characters are like, and if we're lucky enough, it will get relicensed, and then you can go pick up a copy of it when it is. For alternate anime recommendations, I'll first start off with a similar series that prefers the more random and nonsensical take to comedy, Cromartie High School. And secondly, if you basically want a spiritual sequel to this series, just with the insanity meter turned up to 11 and a budget 3 times the size, look up Nichijou. I apologize that both of these recommendations are equally as hard to find legally as Azumanga is, with Cromartie also being out of print from ADV, and Nichijou just never being licensed in the first place, and getting removed off Crunchyroll almost a year ago, but they are the best fit to go alongside Azumanga, so here they are. It's not my fault that my favorite kind of anime comedy is in such low demand by those who decide what and what not to license. And that's it for me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and hey, if you like what I do here and feel like helping out, please consider going and checking out my Patreon page, and if you feel it within your heart, also consider donating. Very special thanks to Grace Anderson, Joshua Garcia, Nikolai Gray, and Kirito3601030 for donating already. Also, wow, I don't get how I'm able to actually say all those numbers in order. It's like been a memorization thing, and now I got it. I did that all in one take. I'm impressed with myself. But seriously, you guys are all seriously, I use seriously a lot for this little bit here, but it is kind of serious, super cereal. It's seriously amazing, and I thank you guys oh so much. So until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.